Hi, Miss Reyes. It's Sean Romero, and today I'm talking about the film Kiss the Ground. It's a 2023 documentary about Josh and Rebecca Tickle, and they're talking about how it connects the soil and stable climate. I think for me, specifically, the two major themes that I found were regenerative agriculture and carbon sequestration.
Little pause in the recording, so I had to make this little pause. But if you see a random picture of Tom Brady, it's about when they're talking about how clean he eats. I forgot to talk about it, but you'll see a little picture of him soon.
And sorry if it's kind of sunny. I just thought this would be an awesome place to talk about the soil. There's a bunch of like nice different plants out here. It's a really nice walkway by my house. But yeah, I think the purpose of the video to check out the soil-based solutions that could help reverse the climate change and whether the film's goal towards climate is realistic, especially with like these nowadays, all these rules and these farming things with like a bunch of new ways to farm, see if it's realistic. But doing some climate change, it says that the NOAA says that carbon in the atmosphere has reached over 420 parts per million, according to the NOAA in 2024, so it's pretty recent. That's a study, the highest in human history, which is especially with the droughts, fires, and floods, which is just uprooting more carbon from the ground. And yeah, and it says in the film, one of the narrators, I think it was the narrator dude, he said, when we damage soils, carbon goes back into the atmosphere. When we restore soils, carbon stays underground. And he's talking about, when I did some research on my own, Ray Archuleta and Paul Hawken describe in the film that biosecretion is when plants pull CO2 from the air and send the sugars up to the roots, and it helps them create like energy or like photosynthesis, which turns into organic matter, which is actually pretty sick. But it also says that up to 40% of the carbon that it's like in the air and stuff that floats around gets reshot back into the roots, which is a pretty interesting fact. I think the film claims that large-scale regenerative farming could help absorb up to gigatons of carbon in the next 20 to 30 years, which is really cool. But is it realistic? I did some research and found that the Intergovernmental Panel of Climate Change in 2022 and the Department of Agriculture in 2023 support soil carbon storage idea, especially 4 key points of soil type, because the soil has to be wet in order to hold and absorb the most carbon. And rainfall, it has to be moist, like a good moist climate, and it can't be super hot like Arizona or any places like that where they can't absorb soil. There's a cat over there, I don't know if you can see it, sorry. And then the management, like no-till crops, no tilling, and then cover crops, which could be expensive for farmers, which we'll talk about in a second, and managed and help grazing and store carbon with heavy tillage and chemicals such as pesticides, just rerouting up carbon and making it hard for farmers. And for the 4th point, helps slow saturation point, making it hard to determine like when carbon is like getting built up and over leaking unless you dig underground. But yeah, I think economically farmers face like the biggest part and challenge of this whole thing, because there's like a no carbon market yet for like, there is a really small carbon market for regenerative farms and stuff like that, and also buying cover crops and stuff like that. But I think our call to action, especially as individuals, should be to start composting and keeping food scraps and waste yards out of landfills, like the green garbage cans everyone sees around. I think that's the biggest thing that we can do, especially so it's not building up fossil fuels inside of all the garbage, like you don't know where it ends up in like Taiwan or whatever. And which can help return the carbon to the soil and support local farmers using regenerative methods. You can also do the same in our homes and communities, whether it be high school, college, your house, even in public. You can even join local social health initiatives, which are super big right now in San Diego and LA. I think they're like way ahead of us. And I think, but also the 3rd is our policymakers, such as like our governors and our Senate leader, or like local government people. They can help with the USDA's soil pilot projects. Similar, France has also something going on called 4 to 1,000 per initiative, which helps collect carbon and limit the amount of carbon that's able to be emitted at one time per the country. They have these big fans that help collect carbon, which is pretty sick. But I personally think the film Kiss the Ground changed how I view climate change.
Johnson, I forgot to say that I do think the film was a little biased just on how easy they make it seem and how many
Instead of
people
seeing
are
carbon as
involved to really
pollution,
make the change.
I see it as like a misplaced resource that should be going back underground, starting from beneath our feet. Thank you.